Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Michelle and I'm a crochet designer and a Swedish author. I thought that today we are going to talk about a technique within crocheting. I've been working with tapestry crocheting for a long time. I like creating different patterns, how it looks. I love playing around with different color combinations and all that. And I think it's always make maybe the most simple stitches look very advanced and very cool. So that's why I love it. It does sometimes take a little bit more time, and but I do think that the result usually is worth it. I have lately mostly also worked with a cotton yarn that is more of a ribbon yarn as well. So when I think that you're working with a ribbon yarn, and here's where the technique comes in, that I want to talk about today. Things looks or they are a bit more visible, especially if you want to work in the round, like in a cylinder, and you want every row to basically, you want when you're starting a row and when you're finishing a row, it needs to almost like align, because if it goes in as a spiral, then you will maybe have problems with how the pattern will look in the end. I'm sure you can get around that as well, but I like to see that the row, when you start a row, it also finishes. So when you're starting on the new row, like it will perfectly align and be, uh, just exactly on top of the row underneath, so that you can build your pattern and make it look really cool. So I've tried different techniques. There's different ways to do it, depending on how visible you want something to be, depending on what stitches you use, depending on what yarn you use. So we are going to talk about what I have done lately when it comes to changing rows when using a thicker yarn and more of a, I guess, a ropey yarn, not so much like of those softer, cozy yarns. So this is maybe a bit more unforgiving when you're changing rows. It's going to be more visible. So for example, if you've seen my previous videos, you might know that I have a pattern for my bottle bag. So if you want to check that out, there is a free tutorial, actually, video tutorial on how to make the beige one. And then if you want or prefer a PDF, then you can buy that on my Etsy store. And then you will also have this pattern there as well. Sorry if my kids is yelling a little bit in the background, but that just will have to do. So here we can see me making a row change. And I think that, it's like, I think it's okay. It's not something that you might be overthinking. But if you're, a crocheter and you see those things, you will see where the row start and finish. But it's looking more like that. And I think the camera is like a bit more forgiving. In reality, I think you see in the reality, I think it can be more visible. And this one also, I feel like it's like you can feel it more. What I've done on all of these that I'm going to show you is that I have basically done this. You can do a slip stitch and then just make a single crochet and start a slip stitch, chain stitch, and then start your new row. I've not done that. What I have done is that I free my hook and I go into that first single crochet on the same row, and I drag that little loop that I left on the outside of the bag that I was doing or working with, and then I just make sure that I pulled a little bit on that loop, and then I honestly just made a chain stitch. I changed color here, but in general just made a chain stitch before continuing and making my first single crochet in the same first single crochet on that row that I had just like pulled the first loop in. And that's gonna be the first single crochet, and that's what I did on this water bottle design. And then I just continued as per usual. And as you can see, it creates this semi-invisible line. That made it look like this a bit. So it almost disappears a little bit more. It goes in a little bit more. It's not sticking out as much on this one. But I recently tried to use the same technique because I thought it wasn't that big of a deal on this one. I thought like, oh, that's okay. You can see a little bit of a change, but it's okay. But then working with these cute little baskets that I've been working on, a pattern for make your own. Then I started to, see these row changes, and I was like, oh, that's a bit visible, like it's a bit looking almost a little bit rough and bulky. So I went in actually and just fixed it with some more thread and just a tapestry needle. And I think it's not as like visible as it was before, but with this light you can almost see like that's where I've been. And yeah, it's not, I wasn't like, it's okay, again, it's not a big deal, looks neat and cute anyway, right? But now we're coming to what I want to show you today, and that is this row change. Okay, you can see it because of the light here, that's how it goes. But if I can show you that up more close, you almost can't see it, right? It's like very much more neatened into your, it goes nicely into your the rest of the rows, I think, at least. I think it really almost not visible, and I think that gives it a bit more of a like invisible look, at least, right? And so the difference between what I've did here compared to the other ones is the other ones are worked, like you can see the line going straight under inside. I can see if I can show you. So where I've changed the rows, I don't know if that is so visible, but the line goes just straight. So we've just kept that straight line. Anyway, but here you can see that we've gone diagonally here, and it's maybe a bit more visible on the inside on this technique, but less visible on the outside, which I think is maybe more important. And if you make a bag, you would have like a lining within your bag as well, so that wouldn't be even visible. So what I did here is and which is what I want to talk about, is that once I reached the end of my row, I did the extra single crochet into a thread that was crossing, because that's the one that is visible when you're changing rows. I think here it's like that, if you can see that like little thread here, it's like you can see that thread, that's the one that I wanted to hide. So what I did was that I did an extra single crochet in the end. Anyway, I did an extra single crochet, and then I did as I did before. I freed my crochet hook, went into that first single crochet on that row, and fished up the loop that I had let go of, left it on the inside, took my crochet hook again and went in, picked up and made a new loop, connected, and then dragged through, and then just that became the first stitch on that row, and then continue as usual. And then once you reach the end, again I made an extra stitch to hide that little thread that is basically dragging the two the row together. It connects the row. What is the downside doing it this way is that every time you make a new row, you will move one step to the left if you're right-handed, as I am, and you will keep moving one step left every time. And if you do that, then you need to think about it if you're having any kind of pattern like we have here, the white that is coming here. So if I wouldn't take that into consideration, maybe I would see this and it would have obviously affected the rest, that it wouldn't change the shape that I wasn't like obviously going for. So for example, you can see maybe the shape here a little bit easier, the triangle shape. So if I would have just kept going as usual, then you would probably see these being a step like further away than I maybe would have preferred. Maybe it would just have changed like maybe instead of yeah, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad with this specific pattern. But I think that if you take that into consideration, then you will have to calculate just what color are you using, and making sure that you're like, okay, now I'll end up on this little stitch basically. And I guess it would be easier to to fix that if you had a diagram or if you saw a pixelated photo of the pattern that you're trying to make. For these ones that I have for MYO, I have made sure that the person who's making the pattern or crocheting after this pattern won't have to think about it, because I've already written that in the pattern and said exactly what the color they need to think about to start with. So that's fine. But if you want to do this kind of row changes on other patterns that have not taken this obviously technique into consideration, then you need to have in mind that even though you get this nice and more maybe smooth transition of the rows, you have to also have in mind that you are traveling one stitch left every row. So make sure that you think about that. And once you get all the way around, obviously the stitch that you jumped or yeah skipped, I guess, because you automatically went one step left, will happen to end up then in the end instead. So that first that you had normally would be the last on that new, and etc. So that's how you need to think. I know it can be complicated if you're not um, if you're if you're not a no, like if you haven't crocheted in if you're not used to crocheting, if you're not used to reading patterns. But I think it makes sense if you try it out. And if you don't do any color changes, well, doesn't really matter. You can use this technique and you will have a really nice solid color of whatever kind of basket or bag, and it will look very neat and you won't notice these transition. If you, let's say you really want for some reason it to be stacked, that the stitches should be stacked on each other, because the risk is when you're working in a spiral, as I've done here, like they do maybe not line up perfectly, but again, you don't have it visible exactly where the rows have been changing, because like here it goes around and round and round. So yeah, it all depends on the project again. And I think that this is mostly useful maybe when you're working with the more ropey yarn, if it rope yarn, ribbon yarn, because if you use something like that is softer or thinner, then you will actually be able to hide like this little yarn or thread that is crossing might be, you might be able to pull a little bit harder and it won't be visible, so it won't really bother you when you use it and make the changes in the way I did here, for example. But with this rope yarn or ribbon yarn, I feel like it's hard to hide that. So that's why I wanted to have an alternative where it's like more smooth and finished. So yeah, have you tried this one out, this technique, or do you have another favorite technique that you use that you find works almost with any kind of bulky yarn as well? Let me know. I want to know, because I want to get better every time I challenge myself with a new project. So that's all I really have to share today. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment.